Hi folks, welcome to another episode of Careers and Coffee. Today I'm joined by Charlotte Frey. So Charlotte is going to be talking to us a little bit more about her role at Skills Builder as an education associate and how do we ensure we continually develop our skills, which is really, really important at the moment. So let's bring Charlotte on to talk to us a little bit more about her work. Charlotte, welcome. How are you doing?
I'm well, thanks. How about you?
Life's not bad. It's all right. It's all right. Looking forward to sort of as these restrictions are slowly easing down, and then we can get back to a new normal, whatever that might look like. But all good your end.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't complain at all. The sun's out today, so it makes all the difference.
I was going to say it's all right for some. Now, before we kick off with careers and coffee, have you got a hot beverage to hand? Coffee optional.
I have. I've got coffee.
This is what we like. That's what we like. Organised, yeah, loving it. Okay, well, look, tell us a little bit more about you and your role as Skills Builder.
Okay, so hi, my name's Charlotte. I'm the Education Associate for Skills Builder. So I am based in the northeast of England in Middlesbrough, but I work across the UK. And Skills Builder is a social enterprise. So we work with schools, colleges, organisations and businesses to help people develop their essential skills. Before starting with Skills Builder, so I started with Skills Builder in April last year. So my entire life has been lived on Zoom with Skills Builder. Before that, I worked in schools as a teacher, and then before that, I worked for the European Commission in the education department, and then before that, I was at university. So those have been sort of my three roles that I've done.
Good stuff. And yeah, so you touched on there. So I assume you've never met any of your colleagues face to face.
No, I could just be this really intricate robot that sits on the computer. I've never met anybody in person, only on the screen. So it's been interesting. We were reflecting the other day that actually there's a few of us who've started in lockdown, and I think because we can have video calls and things, it doesn't feel like we don't have a team, and we've been quite lucky with that.
That's fantastic. Yeah, it can be a bit of a challenge. You know, we've got people in our team that have yet to meet everybody, but you know, I think if anything, you become a little bit more closer because you collaborate a lot easier rather than thinking, I've got to drive X amount or get a train here to go and do these meetings. So, okay, that's good to hear. So, since starting, what does an average day tend to look like for you?
I love this question because this is always my question. What do you actually do? So I suppose my role is split into three sections. So one of them is working with schools and colleges to help them embed the essential skills and make sure that young people are developing their essential skills. The other part of my role is product development, so making really good products and really good experiences for young people to take part in. And then the third part is making sure that people know about us. And so we know what we're doing so that we can help. So I suppose the morning might start by talking to a school or a college about what they're hoping to do and how we can help with them and setting some strategic objectives, either on a call or on a video chat. I might then do some product development work, so look at creating a resource. So this morning I've been looking at our virtual trip offer and how we can create a virtual trip and doing some design work, which is a brand new skill for me. And then I might meet with someone like yourself or someone from our networks to talk about the options that we've got available and things that we can do to support schools. And then in the afternoon, I might do some teacher training, so train some teachers on how they can develop skills, and then have a meeting with our team where we catch up on what's been going on, and then responding to emails, doing lots of phone calls, and then sort of repeat going forward. So it varies, but sort of spreading my time out between those three roles to try and make sure that everything gets done.
Blimey, that's a busy day. And how many people are working at Skills Builder as well?
So there's not that many. There's only 30 of us. So we're quite a little team, which has been a big change for me. So working in a school, was used to working in a team of 80. At the European Commission, there's over 2,000 people. And so I've gone from working in a very big team to working in a little team. And that's been quite nice because it also means that in a large organisation, everybody has a very specific role. So you are responsible for doing this. Whereas in a smaller team, I have different responsibilities because they have to be spread out more. So I've had more of an opportunity to develop. So I'd never done any product development work before, whereas I've now had the opportunity to do that. So there's pros and cons for working for large organisations and smaller ones.
That's fantastic. And let's rewind the clocks a little bit back to when Charlotte was at school. What was school like for you? Did you enjoy school? Did you always sort of envisage this as a future career? And what was the careers and IAG support like for you when you were at school?
So I'm 30, so about 15 years ago was when I had my first careers advice. And I suppose I always feel like I should say, no, I didn't like school, but actually I loved school. I loved learning. I liked school. I worked hard. I had absolutely no idea what I was going to do though, at all. And really, if you ask me now, I still have no idea what I was doing. So I did go to my careers talk and told them that I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I was given a BuzzFeed questionnaire to do, which told me I should be a fish farmer. I don't like fish, and I don't like being cold, and I don't like getting wet. So decided that I probably wasn't going to be a fish farmer. Also didn't really know anything about that or how you would become a fish farmer, and just sort of left it. So decided that I would do A-levels and did media, history, French and German, and studied those. Again, went to my careers guidance, who told me I'd make a great teacher. And I told her I had no intention of being a teacher, didn't know what I was going to do, decided I'd go to university because, as I said, I like learning, didn't know what else to do. So I went and picked a degree that was really broad. So I did European Studies and French because it meant, again, I didn't have to choose. So I could do politics and history and media and French, and I got to do a year abroad, and I loved that. And then I got to the end of my degree and I still didn't know what I wanted to do. But so I went to careers guidance there, and they said, well, get some training in something. Like, you've got a really broad degree, you need some training. So I applied to a few graduate schemes, which are schemes that you can apply to once you've got a job that give you a bit of on-the-job training. And I applied to the European Commission graduate scheme, which really appealed to me because it was very broad. I could apply to do something in politics, but you apply to the graduate scheme and then they put you in a department. So I was successful in that, and they put me in the education department. And I hadn't seen that education would be anything that I would work in, but I absolutely loved it. And I spent a bit of time there and really loved working in education. I loved working internationally. I loved the people that I was working with, who were really inspirational and really made me want to do the best job that I possibly could. And I felt like I could make a difference. But I had not spent any time in a classroom, and I was talking about education and writing education policy and research, but I'd never actually taught. So I thought I'd do 2 years on a programme called Teach First in England, teach for 2 years, and then I'd go back to the commission. And so they held my job for 2 years, and I came across, and 7 years later, I was still in the classroom, and I just loved it. I fell in love with the Northeast. I fell in love with teaching and education. So I stayed there. I became an assistant principal. And then last year saw the Skills Builder job, and it gave me an opportunity to work across different schools. And I was at a point where I thought I want to learn more and I want to develop in a different way. I'd done that job for 7 years. And so I applied to Skills Builder. They had the same values that I did. They wanted to do the same sort of things I did. So I joined Skills Builder, and that's how I ended up here. So I loved learning at school. I didn't necessarily love the careers guidance I got. And I feel like it's almost a happy accident, but I have always just taken every opportunity and worked quite hard and said, right, well, I don't know what I'm going to do. So I need to make sure that I've got the best qualifications and the best skills, because I have no idea what's happening next. It's sort of been my approach to my career, which probably isn't the best guidance, but that's how I've ended up.
That was fantastic. And the fish farmer thing, that's a new one for Careers and Coffee. And you also touched on there in terms of moving from your teaching role over to Skills Builder, and how important it was that Skills Builder organizational values match with your own values. How important is it that we start to get young people thinking like that, they don't just have to get a job, that actually how important their values need to align to that?
Yeah, so for me, it's fundamentally important, because you do it every day. And if you don't share the same values, the things that are important to you aren't important to that organisation. It makes it very difficult to then do that. So I have worked in 2 schools, and one of the schools shared my values and really believed in the same things I did. And therefore, what I wanted to achieve was the same as what they wanted to achieve. I felt comfortable and safe, but also like I could develop. And I've worked in a school where the values weren't the same. And there was no desire to go to work, because it was so difficult, because my values didn't align. And I think if your values align, then going to work is a pleasure, whatever you're doing. Whereas if your values don't align, then it's not the same. And I think spending some time looking at the website of the business and getting a sense of what they're doing, and speaking to people and saying what's important to your employees and what's important to you, and how do you make sure that everybody knows that's important, just means that everybody gets a sense of what the values are, because each organisation will have very different values. that might sit well with you and they might not.
Excellent. And did you have many interactions with employers whilst you were going for education as well?
So I was quite lucky in that I had some, but not a lot. So I did work experience in year 10, and I did work experience at a newspaper because I thought I might want to be a journalist. And after a week there, decided I didn't want to be a journalist because I thought it would be lots of going out and finding the story, and you might have guessed I like talking. It wasn't very much going out and finding the story. It was more finding the story on the sort of the site that gives you the stories and then writing them up, which wasn't what I thought it was. So I didn't do that. And we had a few careers talks at school. And I'm quite nosy, so I would always be saying to people, what do you do and why? Because I knew that I just didn't know what I wanted to do, so I would be nosy and ask people. But I still don't have a great sense of what jobs are out there. And I remember getting to my final year of university, and when I went to my careers talk, her saying, well, have you thought about being a consultant or an auditor or working for this sort of organisation? And I had absolutely no idea what any of those jobs were. And so I think I probably should have spent more time finding out about the wide variety of jobs and spending more time connecting with employers to find out what exactly was out there, because I just didn't know.
Brilliant, thank you. And what have been some of the biggest lessons that you've learned in your career so far?
That I'm still learning and I'm still developing, and I will never have all the answers, no matter how much I would like to have them. And to rely on others more. And so I think I thought that I would get a job, know how to do the job, be good at the job, and that would be it, and I'd keep doing it. And actually every day there's something new that I don't know, or something that I can learn from somebody else. And it's quite scary to make yourself vulnerable and say, I don't know that, can you help? But actually that's how things happen, and that's how innovation happens, and that's how things change. And I still have to work at that today. I'm much happier to say, right, I'm just going to work really hard on my own and get it done. But actually that's not very effective, and it's much more effective to say I'm going to work really hard with other people and more will happen. So I think that's probably been my biggest learning, as well as you can probably do more than you think you can. And it's just a case of taking all the opportunities and having a go at them, as opposed to anything else.
Brilliant. And have you had sort of, I suppose, many new learnings since joining in April and sort of developing to a new way of working since then?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think there's been a myriad of things, some technical skills. I have very much learned to use Zoom because I've never done that before, and learning to use some programs and software that we used, but also developing my essential skills. So I've definitely learned to collaborate with people better in a different way. And so in my previous roles, it's been very much, you've got to get this done, you've got to get it done by this date, hand it in, we'll give you feedback and we'll fix it. Whereas at Skills Builder, it's much more, this needs doing. These people have some skills. Let's bring everybody together, discuss how to do it, and then go forward. And initially, I found that quite uncomfortable because I'm used to being able to think things through on my own, write my stuff, and then get feedback from it. Whereas it was an open collaboration process. So I've definitely learned to do that more. And definitely project management as well, because I had not done any project management before. I'd never used a Gantt chart before, and that's something that I've now started to use.
And we've just got a question there as well. So what is Skills Builder, and in which way does it align with your values?
This is a brilliant question. So Skills Builder is a social enterprise that works with schools, colleges and organisations. And there are 8 essential skills that over 10 years of meta-analysis of what makes somebody successful. These have been the skills. Oh, I think I'm still on. These have been the skills that have been found to be really important. So listening, speaking, problem solving, creativity, teamwork, leadership, staying positive and aiming high. So these are the 8 skills that are really, really important for people to develop. And you can see them on the screen. And so we have a framework that goes from step 0 to step 15, which allows you to develop these 8 essential skills. And we work to make sure that everybody can develop them. So I support schools to make sure they're embedded within their programs. We support organizations to look at how they use those essential skills, how they monitor, how they evaluate, how they check that people are developing them. We work with businesses to look at how they recruit based on those 8 essential skills, or how they develop their workers, or how they can do things like volunteering and offer volunteering options as part of the 8 essential skills. And why does it align with my values? I suppose I really believe that education is about making sure that young people can leave school feeling that they have a purpose, feeling empowered, feeling emboldened, and having the skills that they need in order to be successful. And these skills we know, let people be successful. We know they're really important for well-being. We know that they're really important for moving forward and finding what you want to do and feeling purposeful. And so that's why that aligns with what I believe, because they're working towards the same goal and the same view of education. And then their way of working is also in line with my values. So it's very much it's collaborative, as I've mentioned before. It's respectful. It's very mission driven. So we're trying to achieve this. So let's all work towards it. There's a good amount of independence and autonomy to get things done, whilst there's also quite a lot of support. And I've really benefited from that. And I know that I need a little bit of autonomy to make things happen. Good question. I have tried using Skills Builder. And so I have used something called Benchmark, which is a way that you can self-assess your skills. So I can self-assess my skills. You can see it on the screen. So I've self-assessed my skills and worked out where my strengths are and where I'm weaker. So I know that I'm stronger in listening, and I know that I'm weaker in aiming high, and in terms of attention to detail, and I know that I'm weaker in creativity and can be weaker in collaboration because I don't like making myself vulnerable. And so then I know that I have to develop those skills. And so I can then seek out opportunities to develop those. I can talk with my line manager about how to develop those skills. So if you're a learner and you are working to develop your essential skills, I would suggest having a look at Benchmark. You'll get a really good overview of which skills you're doing very well at, which skills you could improve on, and then you can start to think about how you would develop those skills moving forward. So that can give you a lot of opportunity to go forward and really think about those skills yourself and where you might need to make some changes or work to improve them.
Happy days. I'm back now. Nightmare.
Hello. Don't worry.
This is the trouble, sort of renovating a house, and then you've got people milling around. Right. So after we just talked about skills, but I'm keen to know a little bit more about the skills that you think are most important for young people. I know that will slightly change over the last 12 months. I think digital tech skills will be at the forefront of that. But yeah, overall, what do you think are some of the key skills that we do need to be teaching young people moving forwards?
So I would go for the skills that I've just mentioned. So those 8 essential skills that we know that are based on analysis of all of the frameworks around building skills are important. So listening, speaking, problem solving, creativity, teamwork, leadership, aiming high and staying positive. And within that, there'll be ones that people have to focus on more. So I mentioned, I know that I need to focus on aiming high. There'll be ones where people think that's going to be really important for my role. So for me, listening and speaking are really important. So I know that if I have weaknesses there, I really need to develop them. And so for me, I would say those skills are the ones that are most important. And as you mentioned, we know that numeracy, literacy, and digital literacy are really important. And we would say those are your basic skills. So I'd say literacy, numeracy, digital skills, they're your basic skills. And then above that, I would say those 8 essential skills are really important.
Excellent. Thank you, Charlotte. And just got a question. So can students access the resources directly, or does it have to be through a school?
Yes. So if you're aged 11 or over, you can use Benchmark, which is the tool we just looked at, to assess your skills. And then there's something, if you just type into a search engine, Skills Builder Launchpad, then you can access all of the resources yourself. If you're younger than 11, there's the Skills Builder Home Learning site. And if you go to the Skills Builder Home Learning site, then you can access all of the resources there. So you can do it as an independent person as well as just through school.
Excellent. Thank you. And do you sometimes think that we've got a lot of young people who have some of those skills, communication, teamwork, leadership, but actually part of the challenge is getting them to identify it. So, for example, you might be captain of the football team. Actually, that's a fantastic leadership quality you want to talk about on your work experience or to college. Do you find that can be sometimes a challenge?
Yeah, definitely. I would say the challenge is not that young people don't have skills, it's the ability to articulate them. So when I was a teacher, I used to do an awful lot of interviews, mock interviews, where I'd say, right, tell me about a time where you've used teamwork, or tell me about a time where you've had to show leadership, or tell me about a time where you've encountered a problem and had to overcome it. And I know that those people have those skills because I've seen them take part in a debating tournament, or I've seen them work collaboratively in maths class when people have had trouble with a problem, or I have seen them, as you say, take part in sport or do a fundraising activity as part of comic relief. I've seen all of those things. But sometimes in the heat of the moment when we're panicking, it can be really, really difficult to then articulate your thoughts. And I think the one thing that I would suggest, and I used to get my students to do, is print off the universal framework, that side that we looked at before, that's got all of the skills and the different steps, and write down examples of when you've used them. So when you go to interview and you get asked, okay, tell me about a time where you've really struggled with something and you've had to overcome it, or tell me about a time where you've had to show leadership. You've got those examples there, because I know that when I go to interview, if I don't have those things, then I will stumble and I'll ramble and I'll talk about nothing. Whereas if I've got those concrete examples, I can say, right, okay, this is where I talk about this. And I agree with you. Young people have all of the skills. It's that ability to articulate them that's really important.
Fantastic. Thank you. And a slightly different question. So I know that obviously when we invite guests on, we ask for lots and lots of different information on them. And one of yours is that you've ziplined across waterfalls and run marathons, which is fantastic. Yeah, how do you prepare for that?
A little bit of madness, I think. So. I always think, if I don't do this, will I regret it? And if the answer is yes, then I should probably do it. So when I had the opportunity to run a marathon, if I pass this opportunity up, will I regret it? Yes. So I'm going to do it. Or that waterfall's really high and looks really fun, and I'm only in Canada for a week. Should I do it? I'm going to regret it if I go home and not. So yes, I will. That doesn't mean to say that I'm not terrified. I'm absolutely terrified of these things. So I suppose, how do you prepare? Staying positive and saying, right, okay, this is the feeling that I have, and this is why I have that feeling, but this is also the feeling that I can feel afterwards. And if I just do it, then I'll be fine. And then I suppose in terms of the marathon, it's setting that goal and then setting mini targets. So I want to run the marathon. I know that I can run the marathon if I train X, Y, and Z weeks, and then setting little training goals. And so there were mornings where I had to get up at 6 to go for a 7-mile run in the rain before work. And I had absolutely no desire to do that. But I had, in the long-term goal, I will feel great when I get to the end of the marathon. I've raised this money for charity and I'll feel great. So I'm going for the run now for that long-term goal. And that was really important for me, to have that long-term goal. And then to have the people around you who, you know, A, will encourage you and B, will keep you safe. So, and I'm a big believer in surrounding yourself with that community. So I know that people will encourage me to do things, and they'll say, just, you need to get out for that run because you want to do that, because they believe that I can do things. And then also they'll, at the point where this is stupid, you shouldn't be doing this, I trust people around me to say, enough, do not zip that line down that waterfall, it's dangerous. And I trust people around me as well. And I think there's probably those things that I have a personal goal and then targets, but I also have people around me who I trust to look out for me as well, and also to encourage me when I don't want to do things in the short term, but in the long term will be good.
That's good advice, like it. And I just want to come back to your career as well. So what have been some of the really high points, but also maybe some other areas that have needed a bit of resilience because there's been some challenges?
Lots. I suppose a real highlight was probably, so we'd been working in the school to really improve our journey. And when I'd started the school, it had been in special measures, and I really wanted to make sure that it improved, and we got to that point. So that was a huge high, in that all of the work that we'd done had been recognised, and it was a huge high. There had been some serious lows as part of that, though, where exam results hadn't been what we wanted, or feedback hadn't been what we wanted, or young people might have not felt as happy as we wanted within the school. And those are really, really difficult points, because it's really difficult to turn things around. And I think just believing that we have a plan and we know where we're going and we know what we're doing is morally right, we know what we're doing is strategically right, and so we have to work through this, and we're taking these measurement points to check where we're going. And so I remember when I first joined the school, the first pupil voice I did was really bad, and nobody was happy and nobody liked the school. And I remember thinking, what on earth, how are we ever going to turn this around? And then the second one had a tiny little improvement, and the third one had a little bit more. And I think knowing that things aren't going to change straight away, it's going to take a long time, is really important. And that actually, yes, it might look bad now, but you haven't done anything about it. So you've got to do something about it first. Do something about it. If it still looks bad afterwards, then you can panic. But once you've done something and it started to work, then you see those incremental changes. And I think when you first start work, that's really scary. And I remember when I first started at the commission, and that was my first proper job, and I'd started and we'd done a piece of work, and then we got feedback which basically said redo the whole thing. And I remember thinking, I'm going to get fired, I'm not going in tomorrow, I can't speak to anybody again, this is horrendous. And I remember crying on the way to work thinking, I'm about to get fired, I'm about to get fired. And I turned up and everybody went, right, okay, so what are we going to do about this then? And we had a plan and we did it, and then by the end of the day it was fixed. And I remember thinking, okay, so there is something there about being able to move forward and not just going into this complete spiral of panic. Which I think is probably really important when you first start work, because it's highly unlikely that if you're willing to try and you're willing to work, you're going to get fired. So I think that proportional response is probably important.
Good advice. And we've just got a question. So do you have to pay for Skills Builder?
Good question. So if you're a student and you're joining individually, then no. So the Launchpad and the benchmark and the resources that I've spoken about are free. If you're wanting an education associate, so someone like me, and you're a school and you're wanting to take part in the whole journey and all of the different things, then usually for your first year, it would cost £1,800. There is funding available at the minute, so that you can have that without paying for it. And you can get that if you go to the Skills Builder Accelerator website. You can join, it's on there, you can apply for that funding, and then that will mean that you can have it for the year with no need to pay, which is always a nice thing.
Happy days. And yeah, our website on the side there, and we'll make sure we include the link below as well, so folks can log on to that as well. Okay, I have one last question for you, Charlotte. So if you could rewind the clocks and tell 15-year-old Charlotte one thing, what would it be?
Gosh, panic less, I think. Panic less, in that it doesn't matter if you don't know what you're going to do, and it doesn't matter if you change career, and it doesn't matter if you don't have all the answers, and if you get something wrong, it doesn't matter. As long as you continue to try hard and do the right thing, you're going to end up okay. So I have never ever, and I still don't know what I'm going to do long term, but I don't think anybody ever does. And I think I had this at 15, had this real belief of, I need to know what job I'm going to do. I still don't know what job I'm going to do, but I've had some amazing experiences and I've learned a lot. And I don't need to panic about the fact that I don't have this long-term career. If I'm going to be a lawyer and I'm going to work here, that's not me. I'm going to have lots of experiences and I'm going to learn lots of things and try different things. And I think I would go back and say panic less about having a plan and just, in actual fact, take all of the opportunities, work really hard, and you're going to be okay. I think would probably be my advice.
Good advice. And I'm going to end it on that, on time for once. Charlotte, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you ever so much.
So folks, that was Charlotte Fry, Education Associate at Skills Builder, talking to us about her fantastic career, talking to us about all of the brilliant work that Skills Builder is doing across schools up and down the UK. If you want further details, we'll include all of the website links and what she talked about below. So that's been today's Careers and Coffee. Be sure to tune in on Thursday, 12:30 to 1, for our next Careers and Coffee. Looking forward to seeing you. Thanks.